Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Mark Olson's hand felt clammy as he gripped his phone, the voice on the other end delivering words that landed like a punch to the gut. Mr. Olson, this is Agent Davies with Border Patrol. We've detained your wife attempting to cross into Mexico with $187,000 in cash, your two children, Lily and Tom, and an unidentified man. For a long moment, Mark just stood there, the late afternoon sun painting long stripes of shadow across the familiar wooden floor of his office. 3 hours. Just 3 hours ago, Sarah had kissed him, a casual peck on the cheek, and said she was taking 8-year-old Lily and 6-year-old Tom to her mom's in Santa Fe for the weekend. Santa Fe. That was what she'd said. There has to be some kind of mistake, Mark managed, his voice sounding oddly calm, a fragile shield against the storm raging inside. My wife. She's visiting her mother. Sir, we have her in custody at the Nogales crossing. The passport she presented triggered an alert. We need you to come down and identify her and the children. He hung up, the silence in the office suddenly deafening. Mark sank into his chair, his mind reeling. He fumbled with his phone, pulling up the family tracking app. Sarah's phone was offline. That was wrong. Sarah lived on social media, sharing every little thing. He switched to his laptop, his fingers shaking slightly as he logged into their joint bank accounts. The balance was alarmingly low. A recent withdrawal, $190,000, gone that morning. The kind of transaction that needed both their signatures. He clicked on the details, his breath catching in his throat. Sarah's signature. A clumsy, hurried forgery. Mark wasn't just some guy whose wife had run off. He was a man who'd spent his life reading people, anticipating threats. 15 years in military intelligence, then building his security firm Apex from nothing. His clients trusted him with their deepest secrets. He'd survived deployments by trusting his gut. And right now, that gut was screaming. He moved on autopilot, grabbing a bag, throwing in a few essentials for the drive to Nogales. Before leaving, he went to his gun safe, the cold steel of the Glock 19 familiar and strangely comforting in his hand. He checked it, the practiced movements ingrained in his muscle memory, then secured it in his shoulder holster. He didn't know what he was walking into, but he wouldn't be caught unprepared. The air in the detention facility was thick with the smell of disinfectant and a low, constant hum of activity. Agent Davies, his face etched with the weariness of countless similar cases, led Mark to a small, impersonal conference room. Your wife hasn't been very forthcoming, Davies said, his voice low. The man with her claims he doesn't know her. Says she just offered him money to help her cross with the kids. And you don't believe him, Mark stated, seeing the skepticism in the agent's eyes. The passport she presented belongs to someone named Adam Walsh. Good forgery, but not good enough. It flagged our system. The children's passports look real enough, but they were only recently issued. Mark's jaw tightened. He'd never even considered getting new passports. I never authorized passport applications for my children. Agent Davies slid a thin folder across the table. Inside were copies of the applications, Mark's signature a blatant fake, dated 3 months earlier. I'd like to see my wife now, Mark said, his voice flat, all emotion buried deep. When Sarah walked in, the sight of her in that drab uniform hit him harder than he expected. The vibrant, perfectly put-together Sarah he knew was gone. Her usual flawless makeup was absent, revealing the stark lines of exhaustion around her eyes. But there was a stubborn set to her jaw, a defiance that stung more than tears would have. Mark, she began, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and something else he couldn't quite place. Where were you taking our children, Sarah? The words came out cold, devoid of any warmth. Mom's sick, Mark. I needed to get to Santa Fe quickly. Her eyes flickered nervously. Santa Fe is north, Sarah. Mexico is south. Try again. He saw a crack appear in her carefully constructed facade. The money, it's for Mom's treatment. I was desperate. Stop lying, Sarah. His voice was sharper now, the anger finally breaking through. Who is that man? Just Someone I hired to help me with the drive, for protection. Her gaze darted away. Mark turned to Agent Davies, his mind already racing. I want to speak to him. The man they brought in had an unsettlingly calm demeanor, his blue eyes almost unnervingly cold. He introduced himself as Peter Reed, a freelance security consultant Sarah had hired that very morning. Never laid eyes on her before today, Reed insisted, his voice smooth. She just offered me cash to help her and the kids across. Mark watched him, a lifetime of training allowing him to pick up the subtle cues, the slight tremor in his hand, the way his eyes flickered just a little too quickly. He was lying. Securing temporary custody of Lily and Tom was a relief, even amidst the chaos. Seeing their small, confused faces broke his heart. He checked them into a hotel, the unfamiliar surroundings adding to their distress. While they slept, exhausted and bewildered, Mark sat hunched over his laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating his grim face. He found it quickly, an email account Sarah had never mentioned, under the name Adam Walsh. It was filled with messages to someone initialed PR and flight confirmations to São Paulo, Brazil. The next few days were a blur of legalities and hushed phone calls. Sarah and Peter remained in custody. Mark brought Lily and Tom home, their innocent questions about their mother twisting the knife in his gut. He hired Lisa Carter, an old contact from his intelligence days, now a sharp-as-nails private investigator. I need everything on this Peter Reed, he told her, his voice tight with controlled fury. And who the hell is Adam Walsh? Lisa was good. Within days, the pieces started to fall into place, each revelation a fresh wave of nausea. Adam Walsh was Sarah's cousin, dead for 5 years. Sarah had been meticulously building a new life, stealing his identity. Peter Reed, it turned out, was Peter Reynolds, a name Mark vaguely remembered from his time in the service. Same unit, different teams, but Reynolds had been drummed out for selling classified information. And then there were the photos Lisa found Sarah and Peter, together, in a hotel in Santa Fe months ago. And the offshore accounts, slowly filling up with money siphoned from their savings over the past 2 years. The betrayal wasn't just an affair. It was a carefully orchestrated dismantling of their entire life. He visited Sarah again, the evidence laid out before her. Why? He asked, the question raw and aching. This time, the fight seemed to drain out of her. Her carefully constructed composure crumbled. You were never really there, Mark, she said, her voice low and laced with a bitterness he'd never heard before. Always working, always distant. Peter made me feel alive. And the kids? They deserve a father who's present, not someone who sees the world as a threat to be neutralized. She leaned forward, her eyes filled with a desperate kind of conviction. You never loved me, Mark. You loved the idea of a perfect family, a nice little box to come home to between your missions. We were your cover story, your proof of normalcy. Her words hit their mark, sharp and painful, but Mark refused to let it show. You're facing federal charges, Sarah. The children are staying with me. As he turned to leave, she called out, her voice laced with a chilling desperation. Peter has friends, Mark. Powerful friends. This isn't over. That night, Lily asked if her mommy was a bad person. The question hung heavy in the air, a child's innocent confusion in the face of adult betrayal. Mark held her close, his heart aching. Mommy made some bad choices, sweetie, he said softly, the lie a bitter taste in his mouth. But that doesn't make her a bad person. Not yet, anyway. Later, alone in his office, the weight of it all pressing down on him, Mark made a few calls. He had his own network, people he could trust. It was time to activate it. 3 weeks crawled by. Then came the news. Sarah was out on bail. Judge Thompson, a name that now sent a cold dread through Mark, had inexplicably overruled the prosecution's objections. Peter was still in custody, but Mark knew that wouldn't last. Thompson's connected, Lisa confirmed, her voice grim. Lakehouse owned by an LLC linked to a company called Sentinel Operations. Guess who founded it? Peter's old commanding officer, Robert Walsh. And get this, Adam Walsh? Her father. The pieces were clicking into place. forming a picture far more sinister than Mark could have imagined. The next day, Sarah's lawyer filed for emergency custody, painting Mark as a volatile, PTSD-ridden veteran. The paperwork included fabricated therapy reports and medical records. The hearing was set before Judge Thompson. Simultaneously, Apex Security Solutions started bleeding clients. Anonymous tips, clearly orchestrated, were sent to government agencies, alleging compromised classified information. Contracts were suspended. "They're trying to dismantle your life, Mark," Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. "This is a full-scale assault." Mark nodded, the pieces falling into place. Robert Walsh. Connections. This wasn't just about a broken marriage. It was about something much bigger, much more dangerous. Reviewing his home security footage from months ago, Mark spotted something he'd missed. Sarah had entertained a guest while he was away, a woman with silver hair and a rigid military posture. Zooming in, the face was unmistakable. Eleanor Walsh, Robert's wife, Adam's mother. The custody hearing was a farce. Judge Thompson barely concealed his bias. But Mark had come prepared. His lawyer, Mr. Henderson, a man who thrived in the courtroom trenches, laid out the evidence of Thompson's connection to Walsh. The courtroom went silent. "Your Honor," Henderson stated, his voice ringing with authority, "we request immediate recusal due to blatant conflicts of interest, and we're filing an emergency petition with the Judicial Review Board." Thompson's face flushed crimson. He had no choice. The hearing was postponed. A new judge would be assigned. Outside, Sarah confronted him, her eyes blazing with a fury that felt almost performative. "You have no idea what you've done." "Maybe not," Mark replied, his voice calm despite the storm within. "But I'm learning fast." He moved Lily and Tom to Naomi's farm, a sanctuary run by his sister for fellow veterans. It was safe, secluded, and filled with people he trusted implicitly. With his children protected, Mark focused on understanding the Walsh connection. He reached out to his old commander, General Davies. "Monarch," Davies said, the name heavy with unspoken implications. "Walsh ran a Black Ops program under that codename. Officially, it never existed, but it was shut down when we found evidence he was using it to take out rivals for his private clients." "And Sarah?" Davies pulled out a faded photograph. "Her name was Vanessa Reed. She was one of his best, specialized in getting close to people." The truth hit Mark like a physical blow. His marriage had been a lie, a carefully constructed operation. "Why me?" Davies's face was grim. "Your last mission. The intel you recovered. It pointed to Walsh being involved in illegal arms deals. It vanished before it reached the right hands. But Walsh never forgot who found it. So, my entire marriage. A long game," Davies confirmed. "She was there to watch you, make sure you didn't dig any deeper. And Peter, probably her extraction team." Driving back, the weight of 9 years of deception crushing him, Mark's phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Mr. Olson? My name is Diana Reynolds. I was Peter's handler in Monarch. We need to talk." They met in a deserted warehouse, the air thick with dust and secrets. Diana was a woman who'd seen too much, her eyes sharp and knowing. "Walsh is cleaning house," she said bluntly. "Peter and Vanessa were supposed to disappear with your kids to Brazil. Your money was their ticket out. Why the children? Leverage. As long as they have your kids, you won't go after Walsh." "Why are you telling me this?" A flicker of pain crossed Diana's face. "Because Walsh killed my son when he tried to expose Monarch. I've been waiting for this moment." She handed him a flash drive. "Everything I have is on here. Use it wisely." Her final words were a chilling warning. "They'll come for your children again. It's not just about silencing you anymore. It's personal for Walsh now." They came swiftly. Child Protective Services, armed with another questionable court order. But Mark had anticipated it. Lily and Tom were already gone, moved to a safer location. Meanwhile, the attacks on his business intensified. Using Diana's information, Mark started building his counterattack. He contacted Harry Webb, a cybersecurity expert, and Vera Santos, a journalist with a reputation for taking down the powerful. The key was Monarch's server, hidden in a shell company's data center. Getting to that server was his priority. But first, Sarah and Peter. They were out on bail thanks to Walsh. They were the immediate threat. Mark's surveillance showed they were planning another attempt on his children, still believing they were at Naomi's farm. Mark decided to use their desperation against them. He set a trap. "Are you sure about this, Mark?" Lisa asked, her voice filled with concern. He looked at his children's photo. "They took everything from me. There's no turning back." Under the cover of darkness, Mark put his plan into motion. He leaked information about Naomi taking the kids to a doctor's appointment. Lisa's surveillance confirmed Peter was lying in wait. But Peter wasn't the only one waiting. As Peter's SUV approached the crossroads, it was surrounded by 3 trucks driven by Mark's old military buddies. An EMP device took out Peter's electronics. He tried to run, but Mark was there, waiting. "9 years, Peter," Mark said, securing the zip ties. He showed Peter his phone. A live feed of Sarah being apprehended by Lisa. At a remote cabin, Sarah and Peter faced Mark. A laptop sat between them, displaying a satellite view of Walsh's estate. "Federal agents are on their way," Mark said. He played the video of Walsh ordering a murder. "Diana Reynolds gave me the access." "He'll kill us?" Sarah whispered. Fear etched on her face. "Maybe," Mark said. "But you risked my children." He mentioned other Monarch operatives, a bluff, but it worked. Peter cracked first, demanding immunity. Sarah looked at Mark, a flicker of something genuine in her eyes. "I did love the children, Mark." "Not enough," he replied. He gave them an ultimatum. Confess and testify or face the full consequences. They both signed. The raid on Walsh's estate was massive. The Monarch server was secured. Sarah and Peter's confessions sealed Walsh's fate. Then came the warning from General Davies. Eleanor Walsh was still out there. The warning was too late. Eleanor burst into Mark's hotel room, gun raised. 9 years, she hissed. Destroyed. She shot Lisa. As she turned back to Mark, he saw his chance. He tackled her, the fight brutal and desperate. Adam would be alive, she choked out. Then a shot. Lisa, wounded but resolute, had taken her down. The children, Mark gasped. Naomi's farm was dark. No answer. Fear clawed at Mark's throat. They found Naomi drugged. The children were gone. Then his phone rang. Walsh. Lily and Tom were on screen. A trade, Olson. The evidence for your children. The coordinates led to a deserted bunker. Walsh was waiting. The evidence first. The children first, Mark countered. The evidence is already with the authorities. This is about your grandchildren, Robert. Walsh looked confused. What? Lily's biological father is Peter. That makes you her grandfather. Walsh was stunned. Impossible. Lily has your eyes, Robert. Mark pressed his advantage. Show me the children. Walsh hesitated, then nodded. Lily and Tom were brought in. They ran to Mark. The test, Walsh demanded. Mark nodded at Lily. She pulled out a small device. Click. The lights went out. Now, Mark yelled. The wall exploded. Lisa and the team were there. Walsh raised his gun. Mark fired first. Later, as the sun rose, Lisa asked about Lily. Mark shook his head. No relation. But Walsh didn't know that. Monarch was exposed. Walsh was dead. Sarah got 15 years. Peter, 25. Mark stood in his new home, the ocean stretching out before him. Lily and Tom were healing. The scar on his cheek was a reminder. He'd survived. Naomi visited. Have you heard from Sarah? She writes to the kids. I read them first. And you? Mark watched a ship on the horizon. Some things can't be forgiven. Only survived. As the sun set, he called his children in. The family they had was a lie. The family they were now, it was real. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.